All right, guys. Hello. Welcome to this week's STAR meeting. This week's STAR meeting is about how hard is your sci-fi, where we're going to be rating the different hardness levels of different sci-fis. But before that, I have a couple announcements. So first up, StarFest committee. StarFest is a big event that STAR throws every year. It's a huge sci-fi convention, and it's a blast every time. So if you want to help us work on that and make it a reality, come see us on Sundays, 1 to 3 in the Mosaic Room in Clark A, actually. Somewhere over there. Awesome. Yeah, we could use as much help as you want, and it looks awesome for your resume. So come help out. Second thing, if that's not enough for you, you still want to help out STAR, guess what? We have the PR committee. If you want to help us make awesome posters like the ones over there, if anyone wants to pull a couple of them up. Whoa, cool, amazing. Or if you want to help us make potentially posts on the STAR Facebook/Twitter accounts, come to the STAR PR committee meetings on Tuesdays, 5 to 7 in SAU 1000. Thank you. Right down there.
Prizes.
Very good point. You can earn points, which mean prizes. Guess what? We have even more options too. If that's not enough helping STAR in your life, if you have an idea for a mission that you want to run, we have a need for people to run missions. We have one every week, and we would not mind some help on that front. So if you have an idea for a mission that you'd like to run, go ahead and jump onto ihaveanidea.ritstar.com. And there will be a little form that you can fill out with your idea and different details about it. And who knows, we might even pick you. So if you are thinking about helping STAR and you haven't quite bridged the gap to get started on that, maybe fill out a form, and that could be a good gateway to get into it.
This is kind of already set for this semester, but for the next semester, we definitely have a lot more work for the next semester.
For sure. Okay. Finally, or not finally, not yet. PowerPoint. We are going to be running a PowerPoint karaoke mission in a couple weeks. If you guys don't know already, every year we run a PowerPoint karaoke mission. PowerPoint karaoke being essentially a person coming up to the front of the room and doing a PowerPoint presentation that they know nothing about, and they're going to be presenting it as if they were a complete expert on the topic. And normally the presentation is wacky and it's filled with all kinds of jokes and nonsense that normally would not make sense, but to the presenter, they need to act like they know exactly what's happening. So if you want to make one of these presentations and help us out in that way, the due date for that is you need to get it into us by November 23rd. So start planning it, start thinking about it, maybe even start making a couple at this point. And the actual mission is going to be running on December 3rd. Woo, awesome. Okay. So if you'd like to buy membership for STAR, membership is $6 a semester, or if you want to save $2 entire dollars because you love our club, it is $10 for an entire year. Let's see, if you'd like to get a super attractive STAR t-shirt, is anyone? The super attractive STAR t-shirt that no one's wearing right now. It looks like this. Guaranteed to make you look better than you were before. Not guaranteed. It is $15, or if you are a STAR member, it is only $10. And if you get thirsty at any point during this mission, we have sodas in this star-spangled fridge in the front over here for $1 a pop in 3 delicious hard flavors. We have packed Pepsi, we have compressed Coke, solid Sprite, and we still have the one single lonely can of Coke Zero Cherry. So if you want any of those flavors of Coke, or you want membership or a shirt, go over to Deborah over here. She will take your money and she can help you with whatever you need. And finally,
Actual fine.
actual fun. Thank you. Yes. Finally, for the second time, I have a small poem. Remember, the 5th of November, the hardness mission for STAR. There is no condition why this hard sci-fi mission can't be the best one so far. Okay.
So, this, for a couple of you might be old enough here to remember STAR's oldest, one of STAR's oldest mistakes, the Is It Sci-Fi mission. This is going to be like that, only hopefully not terrible. So I decided to make a very nice presentation for you guys. Look at the star. What a happy star. With our favorite mascot, Starry the Star. Starry, I'll say he's 10. He's definitely a 10. Hard 10. Hard 10 out of whatever you want it to be. Oh, this is silly. All right, cool. I don't really need slides captions, but thanks, Google Slides. Anyway, so we're going to go over how hard is your favorite sci-fi. All right, if this is too dumb for you, you can go with the real title here. How hard is your sci-fi? Animation. So, before we get into everything, I'm going to set up a definition of what sci-fi is that I'm going for this. This is just so that we can all be on common ground for this. You may disagree with this definition. Noah probably does already, and he hasn't even seen it. But I don't care. If you want to argue with me about that definition, you can talk to me after the mission, not now. So definition I'm going to be using is a work of fiction that applies any number of tropes or elements commonly associated with the genre. So it's generally a collectivist psychological definition of it. It's basically, it's sci-fi if it has stuff that we think is sci-fi. So obviously, this source is me. I don't care. We're not arguing this.
I have a question.
So, yeah.
How hard do you sci-fi get with good science fact?
We'll get to it, actually.
Okay.
So, naturally for this, scientists are notorious for using scales to measure things, specifically for hardness. Scientists like to use Mohs scale. So, I figure we can just co-opt this here, just make it our own. And we'll just go from there. We're going to rate our science fiction on a scale of from 1 to 10 on how hard it is. So before I go in, I kind of want to just get and explain like what hardness is for sci-fi. It's basically just how close it is to real science. And it'll get to that. We'll see that scale as we go along. So what's going to happen after this presentation is we're going to be rating them on a scale of 1 to 10. And I'm going to just go through and explain just about what each of those points are and give a little example. What's up, Zach? Yes, diamond is the hardest metal. So a 1 is going to contain just 1 or 2 sci-fi elements, and those elements can be explained by magic. It doesn't really matter what the explanation is as long as it's not technical or scientific. An example of this, and also those elements can't be like integral to the plot. Like the fact that they're sci-fi must not be important at all. An example of this is Final Fantasy IV, which has fun little steampunk airships, and also they go to the moon, but like it could be anywhere. They could be on anything. It doesn't really matter, and they're all kind of explained by magic as to why they're there. So that's the sort of thing that a 1 would be. 2 would have some sci-fi elements start affecting the plot from here, but their function is generally either explained by just hand-wavium magic, or just not explained at all. An example of this would be My Hero Academia, where like there are support items that just kind of work because they say they work, and quirks just kind of work because of technobabble biology that's sometimes it has real words, but that's about it, and that's kind of what you're looking for a 2. 3 is going to have the plot strongly affected by certain sci-fi elements, but the logic of those sci-fi elements is not important, but you can tell that they're supposed to work mechanically, and if you don't think about it too much, you can kind of see how it would function. An example of this would be like Kids Next Door, where they'll have like, this thing shoots a laser beam. You can tell it kind of works because it like focuses the light, and it works if you don't think about it. So a 4 would be a work where the plot is heavily reliant on the sci-fi elements of it, but it contains scientific rules. They operate by rules that very obviously and directly contradict reality. An example of this would be Treasure Planet, where they're like all the things very clearly work in a scientific way. Like the ships all have propulsion systems. They all work by solar sails. They all have a very explanation that is not reality. Like the fact that their space is not actually outer space, and that's why they can breathe in it. It's basically space, just not really. And that's kind of the sort of thing we're looking for a 4. 5 is going to have its sci-fi elements have functions that still can't really work in the real world, but are still very obviously functional and scientific. And it still has obvious contradictions to real life science that are equally important. An example of this is our famous Star Wars. Like there's spaceships, and they function kind of like spaceships, they don't function exactly like we want a spaceship to, but like they work. And then there's magic on top of it. So it's kind of in that grayest of gray areas. A 6 is going to have the sci-fi elements be functional and fairly comprehensively explained, but it tends to jump the shark at a few key moments that make it so that it's very decidedly not scientific. An example of this, and this is one that I'm not sure you guys are going to get, it's Stephen Baxter's novel Proxima. Any of you care about spoilers for it? Because if I want to explain why, I'm going to have to. So it starts off, they're going to this planet Proxima, and they have this planet that's orbiting Proxima Centauri. And in general, it's pretty scientific as to how the planet functions, how they get there, and all of the mechanisms by which they do that. And then there's a magical hatch that leads from Proxima Centauri to Mercury, and then that never gets explained. And then at the end of the book, there's space Romans for no reason. Romans. Like actual Romans. They speak Latin and everything.
Oh, Romans.
Yeah.
It must be like a Kaiser's Legion space, or
you don't get to find that out until book 2. That's the cliffhanger ending. Oh god, that ending makes me mad. 7 for this is going to have its Elements, again, present and well explained. Internally consistent rules and all that. The elements that exist can contradict reality, or there are elements that exist that contradict reality, like fantasy elements, but those elements are not particularly important. An example of this would be Star Trek, which has, it has its very very sci-fi scientific elements with its what is it? With how its ship works. A lot of the things that are accurate or inaccurate about Star Trek kind of just ended up that way. Like the warp drive kind of just ended up being a thing that could hypothetically happen. But then there are fantasy elements like the cube that are there, but like the world of the story will not end without them. An 8 is going to play its science kind of fast and loose. Everything is still very well explained, very well defined. But there are either no or very few reality-defying or fantastic elements. So basically, the sort of things at this level are things that still decidedly could happen, but are things that probably still wouldn't happen in real life. An example of this would be Halo, where you have pretty much all the things in there are things that are either based on just real technology that exists, but taken to a degree that we probably just wouldn't take them, but would still be functional, or are things that are just hypothetically possible. Which brings us to 9, which is going to use some in-depth science. They might use some high-level scientific concepts, like special relativity, or just some high-level science. And everything in a 9 should be hypothetically possible, if it's like, even though it's extrapolating kind of a bit. An example of this would be the early Ender's Game novels before they really get weird. Yeah, Children of the Mind is not a 9. That's more of a little bit lower number there. But like the older ones, where it's just like, yeah, it's hypothetically possible that this alien could exist on another planet, and exist in this sort of way. And they also make heavy use of concepts like special relativity to move their plot forward. And a 10 is going to not show up. Everything is accurate to science except for the plot, which is, the plot is the fiction part. Everything is scientific except for everything is real except for what happens. And the example that I'm going to give is like the first hour and a half of Interstellar. Like the first hour and a half of Interstellar is like this. Once Matthew McConaughey goes into the black hole, it gets kind of weird, but like it's kind of weird, like symbolism-y.
That's like hour.
But like, yeah, okay, yeah, that's true. This movie's long. But like one of my trivia questions, I was able to calculate. You're able to calculate the distance that this planet is away from the black hole with just like the numbers they give you in the movie. And there's a whole textbook about how all the different science that went into making this movie, which is just like blows my mind.
An actual astrophysics science.
Mm-hmm.
And he toned everything down for the sake of the movie, but like he can explain how it actually looked in the book. Like,
Yeah.
So
It's true. You guys?
Yeah, my expand on that is that they made the most accurate ever model of a black hole for this movie. They just poured a bunch of money into it, and then Christopher Nolan looked at it and said, "This doesn't look good," and changed it.
That's fair. I mean, to be fair, like this is still an accurate model of a black hole,
Yeah,
or at least an accurate model of how a black hole would appear. And I think that's the big. I think that's the one important
I
thing.
think the main thing, increasing this would be like not as bright, or be like more red or blue shifted depending on where you are.
Yeah, like there are obviously a lot of weird things, and like one that really comes to mind is when they're on the water planet, like it shouldn't appear sunlit.
Yeah, I think you said like the environment would be like half of like what you see, it would just be the blackness.
Yeah.
It would be a very nice picture.
I think they do.
So you had your hand up. What's up?
Would the ring around the black hole be at a different angle than the planet orbiting the black hole? Like I would have expected the ring there to be at the same direction.
It depends, honestly. The way that the accretion disk goes depends on how I believe it depends on how the black hole is rotating. Correct me if I'm wrong, Noah. Like the direction that the accretion disk is coming out should be perpendicular to the axis of rotation, but like even with the sun, not all planets revolve around their celestial body in a planar way. But that's nerdy. So that's like non-sci-fi nerd. That's just sci nerd. So yeah, if you really want, you can consider like an imaginary 0 and 11 to the scale, where like a 0 is just very clearly not sci-fi, and there's no way you can even attempt to argue it, and 11 is basically just a science textbook. But that's going to be it for this little bit of presentation. What I'm going to do now is roll this up, and we're going to go, if this thing is going to be cooperative. Good enough. And we're going to start putting our favorite sci-fi on this scale. So if you guys were here for the Lovable Rogues mission last year, or the Unexpected Heroes mission earlier this semester, then you have an idea of how this is going to go. I'm going to go around the room, and I'm going to, and you guys are going to tell me what your favorite sci-fi thing is and where you think it goes on that scale from 1 to 10. And, explain what it, I'm going to call on you, you're going to tell me what it is, you're going to explain a little bit, and then tell me where it goes, explain why you think it goes there. That sound good? Awesome. So let's go around. I'm going to go from right to left. So, Noah, do you have your hand up?
Yes.
All right. Yeah. Oh, you had your hand up? Let's do just one for right now, and I'll come back to you. All right. Okay. What do you want? Yeah, that's a 10. That's no, not all of Interstellar is a 10. If you're talking Interstellar as a whole, Interstellar as a whole is probably like a 6 because it jumps the shark at those key moments. I mean, either or.
But that's what take the long to actually. The other thing I really like about the book is how in depth it goes into the science and his daily routine, and how the book is not propelled by science, but fully advanced.
Yeah, I like how much calculations Mark Watney does in an average chapter, and how it just does. It doesn't feel like you're reading a grindy math problem, because Mark Watney is a charismatic nerd. So yeah, that's a 10.
Yeah.
If you want to be, you just put below Interstellar, so it's like a 10.
Yeah, I'll call it a 10.5. Let's do that. Oh boy.
The movie is a little less so about the science than the book, but it's still.
Well, yeah.
The casual moviegoer is gonna go care about the science.
It is about as much about the science as they could have fit in those 2.5 hours. All right. It was like 2-ish hours. I just figured because like blockbusters are like 2.5. Anyway, not important. Who's next? Aaron.
On the Firefly, I'd say that's probably 7, 36.
I might go like 5 or 6, honestly. Is it really that in terms of the plot of Firefly? Firefly is like Western. Why is
I like Firefly. I think the big question with Firefly is the fact that like you can create a very in-depth model of the verse and it can't possibly exist because that's not how gravity works. But like I'm kind of iffy as to if that's important. It's like on the one hand, if everything wasn't so close together, then the plot really couldn't happen the way it is. But like, do you really care? Does anyone have like is it about Firefly?
Yes.
All right.
Josh Whedon straight up admitted he wanted to make a Western, but he was going crazy because he wanted a fantasy or sci-fi element, so he put it. So I don't think it matters.
So like you can argue that it's in the same realm of Star Wars, because Star Wars also really does that. It just uses sci-fi as a setting.
Well, I would not say it is as low on this as Star Wars, because Star Wars has literal magic. And no, then it's still magic. It's just magic that influences microorganisms instead of just being magic. Do you have something to say about Firefly?
Because it's very much people and not. So it's about it's a situation that doesn't need space to happen, but uses space as a medium, which does change certain things. Like there's the whole episode where like certain things written in space and slowly running out of oxygen. But most of the episodes are just about like going to planets and seeing what happens. And like sci-fi is the setting, but it's not.
But also in terms of like it's not on the level of like Star Wars.
I would kind of put it at a 6.
Personally, I think Star Wars is way too high.
Okay, sure. I'm just I'm saying like once it was decided, like once Joss Whedon decided this is going to be in space, as you said, he wrote episodes like one reference where that is a key part of the episode, but also he tried to make all the technology really believable and didn't, just throw in magic or throw in higher or lower in the numbers, like didn't just decide people do need to breathe in space because that's not a concern in Western.
Yeah, I think like I want to say it's a 6 just because of that, the whole gravity thing. But Joe, do you have something?
So we put Firefly at 6, but Serenity at 7.
What's the difference?
Serenity is the Firefly movie.
I haven't seen the movie.
Oh,
I've seen like one episode.
I can go into this. No, there's a reason.
Is there a reason?
Yeah, Serenity. So the reason why I think Joe's saying that is because in the show, there's a character named River, for those who don't know, who they did sci-fi shit to. But in the show, there's only one episode that actually goes into it. In the movie, that's the focus.
Okay, that's fair. I'd be all right with that. No.
I think the movie still isn't science. And like River's powers are almost like magic, except they kind of explain like he got it through science. So
That is fair. Yeah, I don't know. I'm still willing to throw it at a 6. Well, I don't think it's that the plot isn't about the science. It's that the plot isn't about the sci-fi elements. And I'm not saying necessarily that that's the case with Firefly.
lot of the best stories out, not all, obviously, but a lot of the best stories out there are about.
Well, also that doesn't rule out anything. It just puts it lower.
What or things, you know, where it's like.
Yeah, like the fact. Like, I think the thing that's important that I want to just get out of the way for all of you guys, just because something is at a lower number on the list doesn't mean it is less sci-fi or less good. It just means that it's less about the science.
I perceive the list as being how much it's about the science, like the real science behind the world versus the, you know, we just made this up or straight up happened in some cases, rather than we made the science realistic, but our story decided to focus on the characters because that's what the audience wanted.
No, I think it is. I think I agree. It's more about the former than it is then. But I still say I think it goes in 6 because of the issues with River's powers and the gravity situation.
So I actually have a thing, I just thought about it more and I actually am more comfortable with 6 because I just remembered Firefly is the only thing I've ever seen that has science, that has space as silent, literally ever.
It's true.
Like Star Wars has big fiery explosions, even Star Trek has noises in space. So Firefly is literally the only thing I've ever seen where space is literally just music, and that's only because it's a show that has something, but there's no actual sound.
That is true. So I feel like we're generally feeling a 6 here for Firefly. Oh gosh, this marker is. I'm gonna just switch to the green. All right, cool. So now we spent an ungodly amount of time on Firefly. What's up? What do you got? Moon? Well, what's it about?
On the moon, like killing the tree, and saying anything else is kind of spoiler. So,
Yeah.
And that kind of it includes the least sci-fi element of it, but I would probably say it's a 9 or 10.
I would say an 8 just because the thing you're talking about is a very big part.
Yeah.
All right. I'm not gonna like force people to get spoiled on something.
Yeah, I'm being vague.
So
I think 8.
I'm just gonna
I'd
trust you
say
guys on it.
9, like 9 is fair, but
I'd say
it's a really cool movie. Highly recommend it. It's on Netflix. Last I checked.
so. He said 9 or 10. You said 8 or 9. I'm gonna compromise and say 9.
Fair.
All right, and that's Moon. You said.
Yeah.
Cool. And we're going around, so I'll get back to you on the way back. Who's on the side? Michael Cooper.
Before I just want to add something. In a lot of sci-fi, there's the idea of the race that comes before, the forerunners, the proteans, the ancients, and whatnot. Can you square the whole super technological race that came before that had thousands of years of scientific innovation to build up seeming magic with this scale?
So the thing with that in particular is this has to deal with science, not necessarily historicity, which means that something can happen that in the ancient past that didn't happen now, that can't happen because we know it hasn't happened. But if what they've done could hypothetically be possible, then they could honestly be anywhere on this list, depending on what they created. I probably wouldn't put something like that as a 10, but like at the very least, anything a 9 or below. So did you have a franchise you wanted to say, or was it just a question?
DMC. Where would you put that?
Oh my God, that is not above a 5.
I think a 4.
That is true.
Well, but
You know what? 3. Three,
Yeah.
three is about.
Doctor Strange is probably one.
Well, I mean, they explained that it's also.
Doctor Strange.
So,
Yeah, that's true. Well, they have like four, like, really exciting ads, but it's really sorry.
Well, like, here's the thing, yeah. So here's the thing, like, yeah, like you said, depending on if you do it movie by movie, you can end up with having every MCU movie. You could probably have an MCU movie in every single one of these below 10. But like, you could, because there's 20 of those things, and it's insane to think about. But if we're thinking about it as a whole, but I think
Guardians, and even that.
But I think we should think about it like as a whole rather than, because like that's how you said it, was just the MCU. So like, if you think of Doctor Strange, but like you got to think of Doctor Strange as a part of the greater whole, and I think as part of a greater whole, it comes closer. Like as part of a greater whole, I think the Mystic Arts comes closer to something like the Force than it does to being an all-encompassing thing.
If you can say each movie can be, you can have a movie each slide, you can just say a 5 and everything else.
I mean, probably.
So, I think the highest it ever gets on this scale is a 7 with either Guardians and or Iron Man.
That's fair.
And that's not that high, so I'm comfortable saying that.
Yeah. Yeah, honestly, like a 3, I'd be fine. 3 or a 4. Do you have something?
Analyze the fact that these films exist. They're not talking about it as being like magic, which is kind of in its own category. They're talking about it being like the basic building blocks of all of existence that lets you do literally whatever you want because it's your willpower. It's beyond magic. It kind of implies
It's beyond magic. But like, the other thing is, so once you get below a 5, though, I think the presence of magic doesn't do a whole lot to tell you where it falls below. I feel like it's the presence of the science.
Some other third category that's not even magic nor science, where it's just like you can do stuff because you have these rocks.
I feel like the reason why I'm more inclined to put it as a 3 is because you look at something like Iron Man, you look at something like the spaceship in Guardians, and you're like, you can tell this kind of works, but it just kind of doesn't. Especially in like Infinity War with like the nanobot suit, you just kind of have to accept that it works.
Actually, can I make a correction? If we're saying, I'm using Star Trek as reference, that's for 7.
Yeah.
I feel like there's way more science in Star Trek than either Iron Man or Guardians, so I'm actually
That's
because Firefly is a 6 because it has one element that's very scientific and then happens to be in space.
Mm-hmm.
I think I could say that about Iron Man and Guardians. Guardians actually just happens to be in space. You could say it.
Yeah.
And Iron Man, I believe, has like
Iron Man
a
doesn't
guy
have magic.
building Iron Man suit.
No magic in Iron Man. No, do you have something you want to say about this?
Yeah. But if you really think about it,
Yeah. All right, so let's
That's
go
just
down.
comics.
Don't think, just give the mouse your money. All right, so the MCU goes to.
Yeah, I think we all
Yeah.
agree.
All right. So MCU, I can spell, guys. All right, so let's go back around from. Let's go Joe. The Muppets.
They're in category.
I mean, you're
Yes.
actually right,
He's right, bro.
but the things they do are not real. Oh, yeah. No, actually, that is not canon anymore. No, so what I would ask is, do you want to actually like put it on the list, or do you want it to just be a meme? Because I'll put them as just infinity on the bottom if you want it.
Yeah, just let us.
All right.
It's actually this fast. It is fact. Yeah, it's just science
So-
fact.
The Muppets did the Next Generation in a what is the best TV show of all time poll on Twitter last night. Just
Yeah. Well, we would because they're right.
Yeah, they're right.
Don't worry, Keelan's still running.
I'm sorry.
Keelan's still running.
I mean, I think Breaking Bad's better. Than
Breaking Bad's also still going.
I mean, Better Call Saul is not as good. It's good, it's just not as good. Anyway, going around more.
Alright, so, I don't know, I think I only saw or heard of this, but it was Derek here, but, the Elite series, mainly so Elite Dangerous.
All right,
Well,
Derek
I
has
wanted
Derek has
10.
said that name to me many times.
I would put it as an 8 with Halo. Mainly because they do, well, the big component is what they call the Frameshift drive, which is directly based off the upgrade drive, which is like what Star Trek uses. And they do kind of like explain things where like the reason you fly in space like an airplane is because your ship is like layered with retrograde thrusters that just thrust you in the direction. Which I think
Kind of like Mass Effect.
kind of like Mass Effect, and the reason you hear sounds that your ship's cockpit simulates it, and like there's no artificial gravity. You either use mag boots or the space stations will spin at a certain velocity where the altitude is going to be more as gravity, and like they simulate like they have an accurate simulation of like the galaxy. They do their best to simulate how a star system will work. It's mainly like a space simulator more than a game, but so.
Yeah, I feel like
It's at least an 8 in my opinion.
I don't know much about Elite Dangerous. I've heard Derek say that name at me many times.
The only thing that would put it not a 9 or a 10 is you are flying like a ship that is like 1.5 times the size of a football field. You're making like hairpoint turns that in reality would put you against the wall and make you mush. But and everything, and you see things in the game that like you have kinetic rounds that have a range for some reason.
All right, that's fair.
And your ship has a maximum speed even though you space, but they have to do that for game balance and reasons.
Yeah, so I think that is a good place to put it then with Halo. 'Cause, like, I think the reason I put the baseline that I'm setting for Halo is more like you have to actually do the calculations to figure out that it's wrong, and I think that sort of thing kind of goes along with that. So did you say Elite series? Is that right? Elite series?
Yeah, but you can put Elite.
All right.
Is there more than Elite Dangerous?
Yes, it's actually the first game came out in 1984.
Wow.
Yeah, it came out in Commodore 64, I think.
Wow. That's nuts. Anyway, back around. Anyone have a thing? You.
Yeah, I got something.
All right.
How about Transformers for number 9?
Which Transformers is the question?
No.
The good one. What is that?
Well, I mean, like, not just like the individual, like the movie, like, well, because like all of them are very different degrees of sci-fi. Like,
The original cartoon where Megatron
yeah, we're just talking about the OG 80s one G1.
I was talking about the this one will be that one will be a 9. I don't
think.
I think that's Panther.
I don't know a ton about the 80s Transformers. You seem like you know more than I do.
So I don't know, I'm by no means an expert, but I do know that the reason they turned the cars is that these super advanced aliens land on the planet, look around, they're like, oh, cars are clearly
intelligent race here, and it turned into cars. And that's why they're cars. So I think just that the fact that that's their thought process, we're bump it down.
I mean,
We're also talking
I
about
think
theories that have
characters
robot
being
dinosaurs.
dumb isn't necessarily
Look,
not.
honestly, consider it.
All right, yes.
But it could be used as
All right,
Let's
let's one at a time here.
Well, we do have to consider the sole reason Transformers exists is to sell toys to children. So
That's true.
So that means they're also an infinity.
so
greed is.
anything that happens that doesn't make sense, they say, well, it's for kids. Who cares? So like honestly, it has to be like
Star Wars is
like one or two.
Okay, so like some of the things that I do know about the Transformers 80s, I'm pretty sure the movie is canon to the, not like the Michael Bay movie, but I mean like Transformers the movie, the animated one. I'm pretty sure that's
the
canon.
one where everyone drops their guy. It's essentially the series finale of that.
Yeah, the end of Evangelion, basically.
Oh.
We'll get there. But since I'm including that movie, that means I also have to.
Well,
I mean, guys. Since we're talking about that, I also want to include Unicron. Unicron is kind of a weird
Does he
one.
follow gravity?
Unicron kind of follows gravity, but the thing that I think about is the fact that he can move between universes, because Transformers canonically has a multiverse, and he eats universes, which
It's literally the planet.
the fact that there is a thing that exists that can eat existence and then move to another existence, it cannot be a 9. It cannot be.
Also, if we're talking about the old cartoons, not only do they transform, but they also shrink as they transform.
They can press.
Like the sizes they have, so magical the size of what the transformers do.
We don't know about we don't know much about Transformers biology, which by itself I think could kind of put it, which I think by itself puts it kind of lower. But I think that like you could consider that possible depending on how their biology works.
They're like the fact that Energon is the thing is kind of.
Yeah, Energon is.
It could just be
an element
that we don't know exists.
That's
every element.
Okay, here's the issue with that. We know every element that can possibly exist because elements are determined mathematically. But yeah. We're talking about the 80s. We're talking about the 80s cartoon.
Well, that's what they call what the Transformers do. So, also you have to give like a hand to Michael Bay. He did kind of give us a better look at how Transformers actually transform.
I mean, he retconned the lore of his own movies in every single movie.
The show did that.
I mean, that's true. That's unfortunate. But anyway, we're getting off topic here.
I say a 4.
I wouldn't say it's that.
I mean, a 5 matching up to Star Wars.
I don't think
It definitely doesn't focus on the science of Transformers.
Yeah, I definitely don't think it's higher.
So is it because it's cool?
Yeah. I feel like.
Well, the Matrix is.
Yeah, I feel like a 4, honestly, because like it has its rules and its logic, and they're generally consistent, but they are either not explained or contradict reality in a lot of places. So I think a 4 is all right. So that sounds good to you. You're the one that brought it up. I'm sorry. I kind of like edged you out of the conversation here. What's up?
I think it'd be a 9 because most of what we think about is the fact that all Decepticons fight to the beginning with. Like, all reason behind the war. Like, they are both off Cybertron, both on my Cybertron. They both transform and all that stuff. All Decepticons both have a common ground, several things, so reason behind where the fight is kind of, well, weird.
I mean, I guess like it is a resource war, and like that is the thing that happens. But I think that's independent of size.
A lot of it, I mean, okay, so throw back to how we rank. Yeah, I think we're But we're trying to rank it all as basically on how the science works behind it, not so much of the logic and reasoning from the narrative.
Yeah, exactly. Like I'm definitely gonna say I really like 1980s Transformers. I think it generally has a pretty good plot for most of the way through. Yeah, and the movie is fantastic. But I think it depends on how where it goes in the list just depends on mainly how close to real science the science in it is and how important that science is. So that's kind of why I'm feeling a 4, because it just the science in it isn't especially accurate. It definitely follows internal consistent rules for the most part, but it's not at all connected to reality, I think. Does that sound all right?
That's fine.
All right.
Some stuff, the sign behind Campbell Field Transformers, how to explain it's not up in real life.
I think some of the newer Transformers would probably go a little bit higher, though. I think like Prime might go a little bit higher. I probably should have like arranged it so the higher numbers were actually higher, but like, you know, we just every day is a learning
But we
experience.
also have to look at the Transformers. I think they mentioned.
Oh my gosh, these markers hate me.
Yeah, it's not just Marines. I think they actually mentioned in Prime that they existed for like several billion years. So like a lot of things have happened in that time, I guess. Like the human race is not even remotely that long.
Yeah. Anyway, so going back around, what do we got next? Who will be next? 1, 2, 3, 4. Sarlo.
Evangelion. I like, I'm curious what
So Neon Genesis Evangelion.
there's actually science in it sometimes.
Are we talking about?
I hate you.
Are we talking about NG or are we talking about? Or are we talking about the manga spin-off where everything's different for no explainable reason?
I mean,
So also take care not to spoil Evangelion if there's anyone here who like hasn't seen it. Even if you don't plan on seeing it, it's not a good thing to spoil.
When you reveal the backstory of how the world died, that's where it starts. Evangelion has plot. Yeah.
There's a play.
Okay. It has too much.
So even if we don't get it, like, even if we, it's weird because like you have the angels, which are like one of the more fantasy, at least without spoiling anything, one of the more fantasy parts of it. But then you also have things like an attack from it, like an alien attack melted Antarctica, and that's why the sea levels rose, which makes perfect sense.
Yeah, and people died from disease caused by global warming and also climate wars and stuff like that. So like that is
weird mix of like stuff that doesn't make any scientific sense whatsoever and stuff that feels really thought out.
Yeah, it's a strange
Much
one.
like much of them.
Honestly, I think a 5. Because like it has some strong science in it, but like it is also
the 6 because your comparison is Star Wars, so straight up because of fantasy.
I disagree, but it's a different thing. Anyway, so I don't know. I guess like does 5 sound all right?
Yes.
With the people that know Ava, like I'm sorry, it's such a weird one to place. It's like
Again,
half the
I think
time you don't
6
know if any of the things in it are supposed to be fantasy or not, and or if there's
Again, I think 6 because for things, everything's actually decently well. And actually, there is plenty of stuff that actually is science behind it.
there is plenty of stuff that has science behind it. Like I think But like, then you also have the computers are brains, and that's just that. That's just how it is. I don't know.
Like, like servers, mothers.
I don't know. It's definitely either a 5 or a 6.
Put it, just write it down.
Yeah, I'll just say it's a 5. Before we get into debates about symbolism.
I just thought it was just something they cast we meant to. I mean, it was
All right, so going across here, we got Aaron.
Futurama.
Ooh, that's a fun one.
7?
I mean, they invented a math equation for Futurama.
That's true. Literally.
All right, one of the first lines in the show is the fact that the ship bends reality around it.
Yeah.
Which is very obviously.
Bend reality around it. It just moves the entire universe.
Yes, which is very
obviously a line that says aren't stem cells controversial. Maybe in your time, but in our time, shut up.
Like, yeah, and they do a lot of that where instead of even like pretending to do what the hell?
Like when Matt Greening is on record to explain like any criticism about the science, yes, he says it's
instead of trying to even pretend to technobabble, they just straight up tell you, we know this technobabble is nonsense, but fuck you.
One of the least accurate things about basically different features that cable TV is still relevant.
Oh man.
To be fair, when it was created.
I think the Futurama was made like a story twice. So I mean,
Yeah, honestly,
Yes.
honestly, I am comfortable putting Futurama at 3. Futurama does
There
not
was
care.
more science in it than that.
There are too many sci-fi tropes to fit in 2-hour-long presentations. But they also don't care about any of them. So most of the time, those sci-fi tropes end up like rolling over into fantasy tropes instead.
Like,
Yeah. You had something to say about it?
Oh, I forgot that.
I remember that episode. Oh my God.
I am one.
Yeah. I feel like the hand wave, the generally being powered by hand wavium is the 3 on this, I think. But did you have something to say, Hammer?
You make something more blatant than that. For example, when they're talking about how their ship will move faster than the speed of light, Ron explains that scientists just increase the speed of light.
Yeah.
Also, that people who live in Atlanta, you also heard
Yeah.
way too much caffeine. It's really focused on robot music. So you can imagine that. Although, like blood science, it was like.
Wait, what's the science behind the robot devil? Robot.
It's literally just a
It's something that.
All right, guys. Yeah, you guys didn't know? Oh God. So I will get to that once we like get around. But that's gonna be a good one. I'm gonna have fun talking about that one. But do we have anything else to say about Futurama, or are we fine just putting that as a 3?
That is in an episode.
What do you mean? That is every episode.
Exactly.
they go, so they go to the parallel universe.
Yeah.
And fly after Predator. So is there even another parallel universe?
No, just these two. And also we can't forget the heartwarming scene where Nibbler plays his Fry in his mother's dream 1,000 years before. for.
Also, Bender
And
doesn't
that
know
just-
how percentages work because he's 40% of everything.
I'm putting Futurama here, and we're gonna move on.
Also, John, and the dog you ate, when you understand just have the dog.
You're 7. Ah! All right, so we're going around some more. Let's go with no. Oh, Logan, you have your hand up?
Just go no first.
Okay, cool.
Blade Runner. So I put it in the
I'm comfortable at 10. I'm going to say 9.
Yeah, I'd be comfortable saying
Second and a half.
Yeah.
Which is more like you know, we have Japanese had done it yet.
You've done it.
Insane, which is part of what Blade Runner addresses.
Yeah.
Which I think is really interesting.
I like that because Blade Runner is inherently speculative about what our own lives are to become. So I feel like having that as a 9 is, I think, a good place to put that. 'Cause, like, I know the whole point of Blade Runner is like what happens when you can't tell the difference between creation
The only
and
reason
people.
I'm not saying 10 is it doesn't actually like go super hard science, but it's still.
Yeah,
So-
that is I think another thing that's important is that they don't really go in depth about what.
I haven't seen
The
one
things
where
are-
not, there's one where not explaining or not explaining word one thing.
It's
No,
not the
it's-
same.
Yeah, it's not the same.
Right, that's why the science is so central to the plot, but they're not exploring the science, they're exploring the fallout of it and the ethics.
Well,
behind it. But they
9
also, like,
9s kind of explore the science a little bit more. Like the example that I used before is like Ender's Game specifically using special relativity and using those. I don't know if the calculations are exactly right because I never bothered to do them, but like they use some actual special relativistic time. They actually use time dilation
the way
for
that
that.
time can be it's actually into the future because of special relativity.
Yeah.
Like Ender is still around. So like the science is used and it's very but it's not highly focused on science.
Mhm.
Accurate.
I mean,
Blade Runner is in the same cadence as Ender's Game.
Yeah,
When it
but
comes
what
to
I mean,
that.
well, I don't think it's necessarily how much that has to do with the plot in this. I think it's more that like when you go to a 9 is when they start throwing numbers at you, and those whether or not those numbers are right can vary, but they at least try to give you the numbers for that. And I think 8's more like that.
It's just really reasonable.
All right. Oh my gosh. Why does markers hate me? Okay, let's switch back to purple. Maybe that one's not dead anymore. It's not. Hooray. Don't make me cry. Okay. So let's go for the next one. Logan, you had your hand up.
Okay. This was something I argued with Starlo a lot last year, and I admit it's gonna be probably gonna be pretty low score, but Persona.
All right, I don't know anything about Persona's things.
Okay.
You want me to?
Go ahead. I meant to be low. I admit that.
need to specify. We're talking about the Shinigami Tensei universe or Persona specific.
I'm think.
Because it's a very different argument.
Well, I'm pretty sure Shin Megami Tensei is different.
The Shinigami Tensei multiverse is a thing that Persona is an age
Okay.
of one of Shinigami Tensei. That's why I'm asking.
That's it.
Let's go Persona. I never played it.
So Persona tries to instead of the real world, and from what I can tell, tends to be more fantasy just because you are literally using spirits that are represented by your soul to fight.
Sure. So it's
Yeah,
got
like I said, it's gonna be low, but it does have some science elements. Although the science I say is mainly a meta science from psychology.
See, it's going to psychology, give it
That's
a
what
chance.
it uses
Not even psychology.
All right.
So like, I personally don't really personally see a lot of sci-fi, but I know about some.
I mean, well, like,
not
what kind of sci-fi tropes does it have? Like, let's go from there. Like, what sort of tropes does it have that you might consider our sci-fi to be sci-fi?
It goes with like alternate, like I guess it goes with alternate worlds or whatever. In sense. Like I said, it's not too hard on the science stuff. So like I'm gonna say it's pretty low, but I still say it's
Like,
easy.
for context, reason why I say that, honestly, Final Fantasy IV is more sci-fi.
That's fair. All right, so I guess we can put it next to Final Fantasy IV on that.
Yeah.
Like obviously, something can be more or less. Something can be higher or lower within these numbers. Like this is a spectrum, and spectra are not just 10, but that is how. It's just
Infinity, thank you very much.
Yeah, we are 1 to infinity.
For context, reason why I was asking for Persona is very different argument. There should have gone with Tensei games that take place in the future of the Persona, which are straight up like sci-fi at that point because they actually use technology powered by their Persona.
All right.
All right,
And
so
shit. But Persona specifically is a
oh my gosh, why does
Like I said, it's loosely not hardcore. So.
okay?
I only brought it up because we have some on our posters.
Why do you do this, markers? Okay, there we go. It stopped working too. Hey, Logan, since you just said yours, do you mind like running to the bamboo room asking if you can steal a marker? Now, going around again. You in the back. Yeah, I was hoping for Mass Effect.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll put it at 8. The thing is, Mass Effect.
Honestly,
Well,
It's really good except for the mass relation.
I mean,
Yeah,
Mass Effect.
the mass relays is like my big. With the
Mass
science and
Effect
Mass Effect.
is they have their own set of rules and they follow those rules.
So
Yeah.
Like they have the
Thank
element
you.
zone, which is an element that somehow doesn't have mass because they use it to create the Mass Effect field. But they explain that in like the first game and then they follow those rules throughout.
Well, they explain that but the thing they explain is that the mass relay brings your mass close to 0 and then lets you go multiple times the speed of light, which is not how mass works. Like literally, if you have any mass at all, you cannot go the speed of light. And even if you have no mass, you cannot go faster than the speed of light because that speed just doesn't exist.
so yeah.
That is true. They have like spacesuits and environmental suits that they wear in the first game anyway.
That's how self-elite works as well.
That is fair. So I don't know.
So
You got a thing?
yeah. Okay. So I was actually about to say I'm honestly pushing the Mass Effect release aside for a second. I'm honestly comfortable saying 8, purely because if you go through the codexes in each game, not just one, one's probably the best one, but they actually have calculations in there. I've looked through them before. And the science held up to me as a high schooler. Granted, I did not number crunch.
Yeah. Yeah, that is generally the Halo.
Yeah, that's
Halo
why I'm
philosophy of
comfortable
science.
saying 8.
I mean, like
Honestly, the codex explains a lot of it, and it's like you can't really separate it entirely.
so. Well, I mean, anyone can make a joke about it.
He said it says like if you fire this and know your target is someone somewhere 10,000 years from now is gonna have a very bad day.
Fair.
Even that seems a light thing, you know, like, if you were to just shoot randomly at a galaxy, you're probably not gonna hit a star.
Well, so I guess, yeah, if you take out the mass relays, I would be comfortable putting Mass Effect.
I mean, the Mass Relays were built on the Reapers, which are 18.
There was
Sure, but like the way that they're described to work directly contradicts reality. And which is why I think I would want to put it as a 7, because like the fact that it is just that one thing and it's basically just a vehicle for people to get around, it isn't really like the central thesis of the story.
The way you can think about it, you could just think of it like an open world.
One more
But they
thing,
don't say open world.
one more thing I just remembered. Like there's psionics. Biotics exist,
Yeah. Well,
which is definitely a more science heavy thing than other things like it, but it's still there to be a force.
yeah, they do.
Well, it's there to have those sort of powers for gameplay purposes, but like I don't think it behaves at all like the Force. Like it doesn't behave. Yeah, it's one of those like weird gray area sciences where it like appears to be magic, but not. You can't really say one way or the other. I kind of want to say 7, but like. I kind of want to say 7, partly just to give Star Trek some company. I feel
Honestly,
like
I
Mass
don't
Effect
think
is,
about that because Star Trek and Mass Effect are comparable.
yeah, I feel like Star Trek and Mass Effect are just similar levels of hardness, and I feel like that's something to compare it. I think that's another valid way of comparing that. Does that sound right?
Yeah, I agree with that.
All right.
I do how they explain the Reaper weapons though, where it fires superheat tungsten at like 10% the speed of light, so it hits like 450 kilotons of force or something.
Awesome. All right, so after you, we're going around Zachary Yarrow.
To throw in another 10, Kerbal Space Program.
Oh,
Yeah.
cool. I should play that game, but I haven't.
It's a game about orbital mechanics.
Yeah. Wow, I've done Python models of orbital mechanics. That basically makes me an expert, right?
Yeah, I'll put it at that easily. I mean, because it really like the challenge of Kerbal is how well could you do designing an actual spaceship? And it's just like that's like the challenge.
Turns out not well.
Most people was not well. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. All right. That sounds good then. 10 for Kerbal Space Program. All right, cool. I gotta play me some Kerbal Space Program. All right, and now going back around, I'm getting to Deborah. You said Code Geass, right? All right. Now Code Geass is gonna be a weird one. Well, I don't think it's entirely that because like you do have mechas, so like that is put it further up there. You have literal magic. So actually, while we're here, you want to just explain Code Geass a little bit for the people that don't get it?
Yeah. Code Geass was a really incredibly entertaining and fun anime from the mid 2000s. It's sort of a take on Arthurian legends, only set in a sci-fi world with mechas and magic. Geass is what the magic is called. Anyway, as I'm saying, Geass is the name of magic, and characters have Geass, which they use to try and get what they want. But the catch is that if you use Geass too much, it'll get thrown out and you can't control it, and the only solution is to kill the person who gave you the Geass and thereby become immortal yourself.
That's anime.
Yeah, and also, like, there's an evil empire that's taken over the world, and the main character is the son of the evil emperor, but he doesn't really like him very much, and so he's trying to overthrow him and uses Geass to help.
Basic
But there's a lot of, but like, yeah. I think I like Code Geass as a sci-fi thing, because Oh my God, the melodrama, especially in the Japanese version. That guy's having a great time. But so like I think the thing like that we're gonna have to battle with is the plot is driven by literal magic for most of it. But like only for like the second half, honestly. Like Lelouch kind of uses his powers for most of the story, but then but it doesn't really like evolve into the plot until like the end of season 2.
Earlier.
You
And
think
season
so?
1. There's literally a big thing that I'm not gonna talk about. That literally changes the entire plot.
Talk to me later, but like, yeah, it is definitely a big part of the plot, but it is just talk to me after. But like, yeah, it's definitely a big part of the plot, but like throughout the story is still layered with a lot of like near future tech, like even stuff as simple as like Lelouch's mask, which, you know, is just, it's got the automatic retracting back thing to it, which is like, that doesn't actually exist, but we could do that. So like that is technically sci-fi. And then there's the mechas, which are also sci-fi, and Pizza Hut, which is, as we all know, the most sci-fi thing in existence. So I don't know. I'm kind of comfortable for putting it as like a 3, honestly, because it's still mostly magic, but like the things that are there just kind of, the things that are there that are sci-fi are mostly just kind of the background elements, and they're there. I think that sounds all right. Code Geass people, does that sound okay?
I mean, I was gonna put it at 2, but more than
yeah, a 2 is another possible thing. It's just I feel like there's a little more sci-fi in it than there is in My Hero Academia.
It has almost.
It's definitely hovering there.
So like the world, I feel like if Lelouch wasn't the main character, it might be sci-fi. If that makes sense. It might be
higher on the list.
Yes, because the only reason we're having this discussion is because there is a very big plot point. Heavy fantasy.
Yeah. And I don't know, like
even that actually though has a lot of rules with it. So it's not just like he waves his hand.
I mean, yeah, it has rules, but like magic systems have it.
Yes. Well, reason why I'm saying that is because it's for plot reasons only really affects Lelouch and certain other characters that most people in the universe would not even interact and think everything's fine. And they wouldn't actually know about the fantasy.
So yeah, I'm kind of persuaded by that. We thinking 2 then for Code Geass then? Does that sound all right? All right. Oh, not you again.
I can go grab an hour marker.
No, it's my fault. I need to just cap these things. All right. So going back, just so everyone gets needed chance, Deborah, if you want another turn, I'll let you go again. Just because, like, if I'm going all the way here and then I'm going all the way here, I want to make it so everyone gets an equal amount of turns. So did you have another one?
Well, I was just gonna say that there's one anime director called Kazuya Kane, who's made at least 4 shows that are all sci-fi in some capacity, but they've been in different places. So his most famous one is Escaflowne, and that's basically magical, except for mechs. So I'd say it's like a 1, maybe 2.
All right, that's fair. Yeah, because like something like Final Fantasy IV is entirely fantasy, except for like they go to the moon. So all right, what is that called? I'm sorry. How do you spell that? E-S-C-A-F. Is it 2 words or okay? F-L-O-W-N-E. OWNE. Cool. So then let's go around some more. Zach.
Let's talk about Starbucks.
Yo, I was actually thinking about Star Fox when I was writing this.
On the one hand, you're playing as talking animals. But once you get past that, they put a surprising amount of thought into this world of talking animals who fly spaceships.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of fair. Like the jets are the fighters are fairly aerodynamic, which is nice because they aren't just flying in space. But
And you have the difference in design where for like the Great Fox, like the version of the Great Fox from like Star Fox 64 that goes into planet atmospheres is slightly more aerodynamic than like the Great Fox and Star Fox Command, which is just space.
yeah, that is fair. I feel like that honestly fits like directly into the definition that I set for 6. Is like it has its science, its science is fairly well thought out, but it jumps the shark in those pretty obvious places, like you are talking animals. I feel like that's kind
I
of
think there's actually even an explanation for that.
Is there?
Yeah.
If there
Like,
is, I will.
their explanation is
putting
simply
it
that
back.
evolution happens differently, I think, but there's actually reasons into that as well.
That sounds odd.
Like it's silly, obviously, but if I remember right, they actually have an explanation.
Well, so Zach, where do you think it should go?
I don't know, I have a weird mix. There's also like whether or not, because there was that like period when it was accepted as canon that in order to withstand forces, all the pilots had their legs amputated and replaced with
robot legs.
Yeah, robotic legs. And then Nintendo changed their minds in like, I want to say like 2016. It was, I think, around the time Star Fox Zero came out.
Yeah, that was a cool bit of lore that I'm sad they got rid of. But
And so it's like these random places where they like have this attention to detail, and then other things like we're fighting a giant floating monkey.
yeah, that sounds like a 6.
It's so weird.
It is a weird mix. I miss good Star Fox
I
games.
guess we need to get to the Star Fox games instead of having to buy Ubisoft games if you're to the Star Fox embedded in someone else.
God, makes me sad. So
It's like I don't want to get Starlink, but that Star Fox content looks good.
So now that we've got Star Fox set, let's head over to the left. Logan, do you have something? Second hand up.
BioShock.
Cool. BioShock. What do you got on BioShock? What is? Where do you think it goes?
I don't know. I mean, the series basically you get powers, and it's with. Well, it depends on which
Yeah,
to. I know they're all connected, but there's like
We're talking about Rapture, Columbia.
Rapture, and then there's like Columbia and
Yeah,
I mean, that's up to you. Do you want to talk about
I was hoping to think of that as more as old, but
like the problem is, so this is why I was saying like Rapture, they straight up say you get your powers from injecting yourself with plasmids, so they're drugs. So there's actually a scientific reason. I don't think such a reason is in Columbia.
I think it's like I know you get it from like drinks or whatever.
But they don't go. There's not as much thought into it. It feels like it's just a game mechanic for the sake of this is in the BioShock series, rather than a thing that's actually part of it.
Right.
That might also be a matter of they already explained it for the last 2 games. they don't need to explain it.
You're right, but the world doesn't feel it by it as much as that.
Yeah.
In general, a lot more, whereas like Rapture, like, it feels like they actually put a lot of effort to construct an underwater city, and there are systems to handle the water pressure, and there are places where you see things bubbling under the pressure. And Columbia, they just invented their own new technobabble to explain how the city floats rather than actually.
Reason why I'm saying this, Columbia or Rapture specifically, I'm comfortable putting it a 7. Columbia, because there's all sorts of weird stuff, like there's a part where it's supposed to be set in like early 1900s, but you can walk around and hear Beatles music and Beach Boys because there's time travel, but it's hand-wavy time travel.
It's like time travel, but also different dimensions.
So like, but because of how hand-wavy it is, I'm talking about putting it at a 3 or 4 maybe.
Like, there is time travel, but there's not time travel.
Yes. It just feels like a thing to make it creepy, which granted is pretty fucking creepy. But no, like because you'll just be walking and you're like in 1920s rendition of a Beach Boys song.
Oh
So
yeah.
it's like really weird.
Put them down separate. So then Bioshock Infinite. Yeah, I think somewhere around 3 to 5. But like, where do we think that should go? Because I'm kind of,
It's hard. It's really hard, honestly, because
Do we ever play Starfinder?
no.
Actually, you know what? I think it is kind of great because it just kind of
Rapture they do go into because there's the journals that if you actually listen to explain a lot of the science, not necessarily in depth, but
we have a point on this where they have the science that appears to work and they just don't explain it. That's literally the reason we put for Futurama.
So the entire issue is, and this is where we get into the question, as you said earlier, is it because there's past games, specifically for plasmids or whatever they're
Well,
called?
plasmids maybe, but like the things like how the city floats or the
You know
time
what?
travel-y bit.
It's a 3, maybe a 2.
It's
Because
great.
of endings that I'm not going to go into.
I'd say it. I think that's.
I think
better.
the ending specifically is we get into weird ass territory where I don't know where to fucking.
But anyway, so Bioshock Infinite, I'm gonna say 3. But OG, so Bioshock 1 and 2. Hold on. I'm just gonna say Bioshock I and hope that doesn't get confusing with Bioshock 1 and 2.
Can you just do the Infinite like?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, it's happening.
That is a symbol that exists. Cool. And 1 and 2, I agree, are definitely a lot higher numbers on this. I don't know, like.
So I think it's higher than this. I think it's 7.
Yeah.
I can see it.
I think so. Cause like.
Because
I think-
it
so
actually
the things
makes
that, like-
a lot of sense.
The
And I'm
things
sure.
that confuse me about the scientific-ness of the Bioshock 1 and 2 is just how the little sisters work. It kind of is just like, it doesn't seem explicitly unscientific. It just seems, it's definitely just kind of hand-wavy, which,
They have a parasite inside of them.
yeah, I guess. Sure, let's do 7.
Yeah.
7 for Bioshock 1 and 2.
If you wanted to lower it down to a 6, but I guess they do.
Yeah.
I mean, that makes sense. But it's climate.
Cool. So now let's go around some more. Anyone have a thing? Raise your hand for your sci-fi thing, Michael Cooper.
All right, the Cthulhu stuff.
Oh,
What?
geez.
I mean, they're not taking
No,
millions.
the whole idea of ultra abominations is that they are beyond human comprehension. It still goes upon sort of a important sci-fi idea that humans don't matter and the universe would exist whether you're there or not.
Yeah.
What
So
was it?
cosmic-
I missed it.
We do it with us.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, the only thing
here's the ultimate thing. Look, it's only considered, the only reason we have the more scientific stuff is because of people dying.
Yeah.
So, are we counting that?
I don't. Let's say we are, because I kind of don't want to be the guy to say that it's not sci. It's not really sci-fi, because Cthulhu is like basically magic. So like, let's count all of
The
it.
reason why I'm asking is within the context of the Lovecraft source, they're all just gods.
Yeah.
They don't become actual scientific.
Yeah. Let's make it. Let's do everything.
I mean,
I don't know.
Right?
At least the show house. Like, they call them like, these are like, on the planet when the moon was made. So it's like, they made the aliens.
I think the only story that actually goes into Cthulhu itself is called Cthulhu and one make
Right.
Cthulhu. And they literally just say about Cthulhu, he's a god that is sleeping under the ocean, and when he wakes up, he's dead.
Yeah.
That being said and done, either way, it is a very influential in sci-fi in terms of, as Michael Cooper said, the idea of we don't matter, right?
Mm-hmm. So I would say that that is definitely a trope and a theme, more so than.
I'm just bringing it up because that would be a theme.
Well, having sci-fi tropes and themes just is good because that qualifies it for the list. But the fact that they are magical beings.
I'm also pretty sure, I don't think they've ever said the cultists don't use
Yeah. I think I want to put it as a 1.
Yeah. Like, yeah.
It's super magic.
I think if anything, you can say it's a lot. I think it's only.
Yeah.
I'm not getting into that. But either way, I want.
Say, if anything, if I was the
Yeah. But the entire problem, as I said earlier, is that even the sci-fi ones don't go into what makes them what they are. So as far as we know, they're not technology.
But the most we really get is
They're just aliens.
They're aliens, I guess.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm comfortable with that. So let's go around some more. Who's got things? Who's got sci-fi? Anyone? Anyone? You.
You just made it very happy. I'm not here for that.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because there are, depending on where you are in the series, it may seem either harder or softer depending on where you are. And I think knowing everything, I kind of want to put it as either a 5 or a 6. Like, so, well, because you have a lot of the magic that's in it is defined very clearly by the end as not magic, it's just their programming influencing them to behave in a certain way. So, like, they say that everything is destiny, but like destiny is the word that they use for the theme when it's really just their programming. So I definitely get something like that. But like the reason I would put it as lower is because just like the way that the beings themselves work, as well as like just the fact that the Great Spirit Robot is so huge, like it should have its own gravitational pull based on how, it should have a substantial gravitational pull based on how big it is. It does not. It is a robot that crash landed on, it crash landed on a moon that is like many times the size of Earth. But like, there should have been like some sort of gravitational like bulging if you would expect something like that, or you would expect being on a different planet like that to just have an effect on other things around it. Like maybe the red star would come closer. But like, I don't know. I feel like I also want to put it as a 6. I kind of agree with you. It's like it's such a weird.
You are the biological expert.
No, because there's the parallel universe thing. God, that was I'm putting it as a 6. Honestly, this is.
There's a parallel universe thing?
There's a parallel universe arc. They went on this whole arc for like an entire year in these serials that they just used to explain why the Takanuba set that they released in 2008 was big and his color scheme was different. That was the whole reason they did that. They had him jumping through like alternate what-if timelines. It was a weird arc, but it was an interesting. Anyway, yeah. Now, anyone that sees the picture of this on social media will not believe that I didn't introduce that. So thanks for that. Well, now then they definitely won't believe me.
What?
Anyway, you had a thing.
I mean, at least like Z, not only like
I want to say it's a 2 or 3.
2 arcs that are really revolve around science, and that's the parent and android arcs.
And those are like definitely contradictory to real science.
Yeah, I mean,
like that ship goes way faster than it's supposed to, and also Namek is way bigger than it should be, and. Also, the gravity on like any of the planets they talk about is literally described as being enough to kill someone. And the fact that they're Saiyans themselves, I don't know. I want to put it as a 2. Oh.
Yeah, no, I'm not disagreeing. I just want to I'm saying it 2 or 3 as well.
Yeah, that's fine.
I'll put it as a 2
because Code Geass is up there.
Yeah,
yeah. There are spaceships, and they function like you would expect a spaceship to.
And every time you see like this like almost society, they seem fairly futuristic, like flying cars and something like flying cars. Like Bulma's whole deal, like the Capsule Corp, like they didn't pop into the capsules because
I'm gonna say Z because I don't want to deal with how inconsistent the original series and Super gets with its.
Yeah.
Super tries to do like dimensional scaling, and it's weird. All right, so let's go back around. This is probably going to be our last sweep.
Chrono Trigger.
I don't know much about Chrono Trigger.
So I'm bringing it up because I can't tell by its name. There's time travel is very heavy, and even though it is a RPG, it actually is sometimes scientifically like a sci-fi thing, because there's actually a time machine used. Okay. And at one point you go to the future and you have a robot join the party. And there's also magic like very heavily, so it actually gets a little weird and messy and has like lots of.
It sounds like at least a 2. Probably 3 or 4.
I don't. So the thing is, I don't think it ever goes into the science, but it's not like infinite where it just doesn't.
I mean,
So maybe a 4.
yeah, that's fair. Like, do they explain it at least?
Sort of.
It doesn't have to be super in depth because like Treasure Planet is up here. They don't explain that
I'm okay putting it
super
forward.
in depth either. They're just like, I don't think they ever even outright say that the space that they're in is not outer space.
There's like 500 characters, but one of them is straight up impossible. Where
Yeah.
there's robots and everything.
I do know about that. So yeah, I think a 4 is all right for Chrono
Yeah.
Trigger. Just from what I know about it and from
I
what
think
you
a
said.
4 is pretty fair. I think it was higher for a 5.
I mean, I think it could be either or, honestly. But just I can't really make an argument either way because I haven't played it. But all right, moving back this way. Anyone else? Anyone else? Anyone else? Anyone else? Anyone else? Deborah.
I have a thought. I would argue that the Anime Steins game is pretty high up on the list just because, although it's about time travel, it is one of the best thought out time travel systems I've seen in a long time.
All right. Tell me about it and try and be a little not spoilery. So I do want to see that.
Well,
I haven't seen Steins Gate.
okay.
I want to see Steins Gate, but I haven't.
Okay. I don't think giving too much away is how it works in this world. Basically, time will keep coming along for much of human history, and things will just keep going as they've been going. But every so often, a really dramatic event happens that causes the time frame to split and go on a radically new path. This is extremely interesting because that's the way that evolution is believed to work in the natural world. A lot of scientists nowadays think that, life forms used to just kind of, first you had like single cell life forms and they went along until suddenly something happened and they now basically just become multicellular. And that went along until suddenly it became like they just to have a wide diversity of different body types and life cycles, but you get the idea. So I think the fact that this show seems to echo that in some way is very interesting. I'm not sure how hard it is in an overall sense, but I think it's a lot harder than it would have been, considering it's dealing with time travel, which does not really exist.
Yeah, I definitely think just from what I've already heard about Steins Gate, it is at least a 1, but I don't know anything much about it. So I kind of want to like go around to see. I kind of want to go around and see there is the possibility of just not being on the list. But like,
Steins Gate is pretty heavily sci-fi.
all right.
All
right.
I think, okay, so like, all right, I think like how they try to explain how the rules behind the sci-fi kind of makes sense, but what doesn't make sense is like how the universe tries to correct itself. Like there's like points. I don't want to go too much into plot territory because obviously you want to see the series, but there's parts of it where it's like I guess the universe is like correcting their mistakes, or it's trying to fight back in a sense. It's like I don't understand how it gets
like Doctor Who's idea of where like you, but in a way that is less heavy-handed than Moffat.
Well, that's pretty easy. But I think
the
I
same
get
sort of
what
idea exists, which is obviously not as science.
So, I think you were gonna say something about this.
Well, I just kind of like what Tyson kind of said, where like the time stream or the universe is always like essentially a thing that wants to correct itself or go along the path of past judgment or least existence, and something happens that splits, like it tries to correct the split kind of evolution or anything really works, or like you want to go along the path of would be best for you. The universe as a whole is usually trying to do that. So
to me, like That kind of sounds, it sounds kind of hand wavy, but it sounds like an intuitive kind of hand wavy. So it sounds like a 4 or 5.
Yeah. I have the main reason it feels like it should give a lower number is other time travel sci-fi do the thing of like, you're not changing the right variables, so the same thing is always going to happen, even though you keep going back in time. And Steins Gate's explanation, while better than Doctor Who's, still feels a bit hand-wavy.
It's almost like a philosophical ideal of how the universe can be self-directing.
Yeah,
Like a living organism.
which makes it less.
True, it's less. I mean, sci-fi can't be
It doesn't make it a bad story.
No,
It's
not like I binge watched the entire Steins Gate over every single night.
Yeah, no. Just like to reiterate, nothing on this. This is not a rating of quality. This is just a rating of the scientific accuracy. So
I'd say a 5.
all right, you guys think a 5 is all right?
Maybe a 4.
All right, does 4 sound good to the people that have watched Steins Gate?
I think 5 to 4. I feel weird putting it as less hard sci-fi than Star Wars.
So you want to just put it as 5?
I'm almost being close. That's also less hard than Ava.
I mean, they can be in between. And the same number.
Like, it's time travel, so obviously it's not real science, but it's still time travel that, like, cites its sources as well as time travel can. Yeah, like, actually referring to other things and other people who have written about time travel.
Well, I think referencing other fiction is not necessary.
And you're not, like, referencing fiction, but, like, referencing theories about time.
I think
like real people.
Science is more well thought, is more thought out, more so than Treasure Planet and Transformers.
All right, so let's put it as a 5.
It's one of those in a weird place where it's like, once you expect
All right.
that this exists.
I'm gonna have time for. I'm gonna do one more. So let's go around the loop. If anyone has anything, then just shout out. Zach, you got a thing? Sounds like you got the last thing.
Oh, I don't know what I think is the last thing.
You're gonna make it the last thing.
What's your number?
What a great one to end on, honestly.
Yeah. Because, yeah. But, I mean, a lot of biology, apocalyptic future, where humans let global warming and climate change get out of hand.
Don't they explain how they advance biologically though?
Yeah.
I'll give you one more. We still have to.
What? We're talking about Splatoon.
Because I know you know some of these.
That's pretty low on the list.
It is low, but it is more based in science than people realize just because of the whole backstory of it being a post-apocalyptic future where humans let climate change get out of hand, and then everything flooded, and then the humans died off.
How well explained?
That was the backstory of Splatoon 1.
Yeah. That was from Splatoon 1.
I mean,
but
the only thing that what they say about it in Splatoon 2 is, yep, there were humans and other land animals, and then they died.
So what I would ask is how well explained is the evolutionary process of getting to squid people?
Not that much, I'd say.
Is there at least a technobabble explanation for it?
There is a technobabble explanation.
Very happily.
I mean, of like sea creatures becoming dominant life forms, but then eventually water receded, and then they evolved to walk on land, but not in exactly the same way humans did. I mean, characters like
yeah, that sounds like a 4. That sounds like about as much as Chrono Trigger.
You're not fighting a people, you're fighting in artificial intelligence. It's not like that happens in things that are harder than sci-fi and Splatoon.
That I feel like
that's a 2001.
that sounds like about the same level of hand. That sounds like about the same level of hand wavy as like Transformers or Treasure Planet.
Yeah, that's bad.
All right.
Oh, yes.
JoJo has hard science and Kawasaki Infinite.
No, it's not.
2001 is.
2001 is
What?
oh my
I
god.
think we should change it.
I mean, I don't think we should change it
So-
either.
I think 2001 is.
2001?
I
2001
think
is
no.
precise.
I think 2001 is a 6.
So here's
because of
why.
the ending.
I have a very big thing on this. 2001 has the most accurate set designs in movie history in terms of science because they walk on the ends of the space station. They're all walking along the edge, which is.
I mean, Interstellar.
I know.
It's not like in movie history.
You know what I mean? It's the only actual thing that makes it not top 10 in my mind is the weird shit, which granted.
That's like half of the movie.
No, I'm more willing to say a quarter. If you cut out the fact that the first 20 minutes is them in the cave times. It's monkeys. But say cutting that out and then the last, like, the only times the actual weird shit's there is the last 10, 15 minutes.
He becomes a space baby, son.
Yes, last 10, 15 minutes.
I'm
I'm not disputing
John.
that.
Wait, whoa, John.
I'm saying so when I said Interstellar was down as a 10, I meant Interstellar. I meant the first up until it got to the
So,
weird stuff, and then I thought that, and then I said if you consider that, it should be a 6.
Why isn't it, then why can't Snake apply to 2001?
Yeah,
I mean, if you're going to call it like that,
Ending of a film.
sure. All right, you know,
That's why I'm saying E. Because also, I think that
if you're
Well,
willing to,
according to
if you're honestly, if you're willing to take out all of the weird stuff that happened in the end, then I'm willing to put it higher than an 8. Honestly.
also, the reason why I'm also saying E is in the novel.
Have a good night, guys.
In the novel, where it is a separate thing, there is actually really big explanation for shit that makes a ton more sense. It is scientifically based.
I don't know.
And you want, if you have Interstellar as a 10,
Yeah.
the reason why
If I have Interstellar as a 10, if we're willing to, so I will put 2001: A Space Odyssey as a 10, and then I will put 2001: A Space Odyssey's ending as a 1.
That is fair.
All right, sure.
Sure. I thought.
Can you just put 2001 Space Baby?
Yeah.
I thought of, wait, yes.
Adventure Time, that's a 1.
But no, because maybe because there's an episode where Princess Bubblegum tries her damnedest and kind of does pretty well to explain all the magic of science.
But like,
I don't know.
We're
I
talking
don't know much about that other than it is
Okay.
apocalyptic, but like it seems like it's just magic. Like I cannot.
it does not make.
I cannot
I
fathom
mean,
a shape-shifting dog being explained by science in any way. In any like.
if you want, I mean, because he's actually partly.
That's a 4 at best.
Yeah, it's revealed that like
I said at best.
it's revealed that like when Jake was born, like
Well, actually,
his mother and like a alien.
if you say it like it is, if you say it that Princess Bubblegum does try to explain everything with science, that is a 4. Honestly, like the attempt to explain it and do so in depth is I think what separates a 3 and a 4.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I know, but I feel like you don't explain it.
Are we actually saying Adventure Time?
Yes, we are saying Adventure Time is more sci-fi than BioShock Infinite.
I
Like the internet.
It doesn't want to sci-fi or future world.
Yes, we're saying it's more sci-fi than BioShock. Okay, Futurama is not very hard.
there, and it's because like a ton of different space in your shape.
That's what the exclamation point. There isn't actually an exclamation point in the title. I just like to put it there. So, all right.
All right.
I'll take one more if you guys have one more. Otherwise, oh, okay. Well, that's gonna be the last one.
Joe wanted to say something.
Paul's better one.
Paul is usually the worst.
I'll allow one more. I'm just. Deborah, we have the mission. The mission is scheduled to go over time. I'm sorry.
Paul, the main thing of Paul is usually where they did invent Texas. That's like the main split of the timeline, and that's about it. Like they use nuclear power to power everything.
I mean, yeah, it's definitely more than 5. I don't know. I'd say like that's probably a.
They went to the center of the year of the box.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, if you discount like the actual year numbers, like I don't know. I feel like an 8's good for that.
I mean, it does go into its science. As weird as Fallout can be, it does have pretty some science at times. So Joe, you had one thing you wanted to pitch or no? Okay.
All right. Cool.
What were you gonna say?
All right. So last announcement before we go. If you guys haven't bought your membership and you want to buy your membership, talk to Deborah. Otherwise, make sure you guys vote tomorrow if you're eligible to vote. And have a good week. Yeah, they are. Midterm election. Midterm election. You can check that on vote. I think it's vote.